Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Wednesday, and welcome back to our new series, Divination Meditation. In case you missed what we did last week, in Divination Meditation, we're taking a different approach. Instead of taking the tarot spread and then going through the cards and interpreting what it's most likely to mean, this is instead more so about things that we can think about. Taking three different tools, a tarot card, an ogham, and a rune, and just seeing what things do they have in common, what message is really trying to get through, and then thinking about how it can actually be put into practice and made useful, because of course it's never enough just to have something rolling around in our heads. It's how it affects our psyche, how it affects our conduct, and how it affects the actions that we take in the wider world. That's when we start seeing the manifestation of spiritual values. So the tarot deck that we're using is the Cat Tarot, written by Julie Smiley and illustrated by Megan Lynn Cott. And the card I drew this week was the Queen of Cups. So you see the cute gray kitty having a nice little nap. The key words of this card are comfort, love, kindness, compassion, and self-care. Having just been recovering from a recent illness, the idea of self-care is particularly relevant to me at the moment. But I want to touch on just kind of the overall sense of this card. It's about comfort, well-being. In the design world, you might call it hygge. But it's about, that being okay. Things are centered. You're all right. You're not having to take in more of the stresses of the outside world. This is more so about having your own environment and your own soul in alignment to where it's supposed to be and to where you can recover from the things that do stress you out. Now, the ogham that I chose this week is Nion, representing the ash tree. The literal meaning has to do with a branch fork, when the different branches in the trees fork off from one another, and also the idea of a loft, having a perch within that tree. And the key words for this are awakening, rebirth, and peace. To be awakened obviously means that you were asleep, possibly in a dreamlike state, in which you were not in a place of reality. You were not in a place where you were engaging with the outside world. But to be fully awakened means that you can look around. You can see your environment, those within it. You can observe the interactions of all of it, and you can begin to draw conclusions about what's going on. The idea of rebirth, renewal. If not so much in the physical sense, but definitely in the psychological sense. If you're able to take a fresh approach, the baggage of your past isn't just weighing you down. It's not like you've forgotten what's happened to you, but you have recovered from it, and you're able to move forward. And it's something you've been able to chalk a lot of things up to experience, and it's not. You're not ripping the old wounds open over and over again and feeling them as though they all happened 5 minutes ago. And then peace. That's the last idea about that. Being peaceful, it really goes along a little bit with our Queen of Cups. It's all is well. There isn't any major tumult. There isn't, a storm wreaking havoc in the sky. There isn't an earthquake that you're having to deal with. Things are as they ought to be. Now for our rune, I picked Thurisaz, which has to do with the god Thor. Its meaning has to do with thorn, but also resistance to danger and ideas of defense and protection, which is very different because it has a more aggressive overtone than what our tarot card and what our ogham did. Because with the tarot card and ogham, it was essentially, all is well, things will be fine. And this is so we are resisting the danger. We are defending. We are protecting. We are doing all these active, aggressive things in order to protect. So I thought it was very interesting that, the rune is just kind of off doing its own little thing when we have, stronger overarching energies from our tarot and our ogham this week. So let's talk a little bit about how this all fits together. One thing that we might consider is that perhaps the tarot card and the ogham with its ideas of comfort and well-being and that things being as they ought to be, but they might be more internalized. As obviously none of us has full control over what goes on over in the world, but we can attain a sense of well-being within ourselves. And so having that within us, having that be our core strength, that might be what enables us to face the rest of the world, to be in that place where we are that warrior who is resisting the dangers that the outside world can represent. whether it's physical dangers or it's psychological dangers, or things are going really screwy in our society and someone really ought to be doing something about it. Being able to sit to be the person like, okay, here's my contribution to trying to improve that situation, being that defender, being that protector of yourself and those you care about. And that's really kind of that I think that is the general direction I am leaning with this particular meditation, is that we have two tools representing what's going on internally, and then one tool representing what's going on externally. And where this is taking me in my thought process is that it is so incredibly important to build ourselves up from the inside out, that if we are okay internally, we're going to have a much easier time facing the outer world and being able to conduct ourselves in an effective way. If we're tearing ourselves down, or we allow others to do so, or we just are clinging to the stress or to trauma or pain, and just we will not let it go, we will not let ourselves recover, and that's going to weaken our ability to defend ourselves, to protect other people, to really even be a productive member of society. It's because we don't have anything fueling that the external presentation we give to the rest of the world. It always has to come within in order for it to be effective, particularly over the long term. And that's something else that I think is we're thinking about it, not so much because our tools touched on that aspect of it, but just because I think it's the next logical step. It's about how do we do that? How do we build ourselves up? What ideas are we helping ourselves with, and are we thinking in terms of 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now? Now I'm 40, so obviously I'm not going to be here in 100 years, but other people will. And those people who are around in 100 years, they will be affected by the decisions and the example made of, my generation and everyone who's currently living. We're all, working together. Well, I wouldn't say working together, but all of our actions come together, and it forges reality as it is going to be shaped in the future. So it does matter, even in our own small circle, in our own small way, it does matter whether or not we're planning ahead, or if we're just, existing in fight or flight panic mode day to day, and never looking beyond that, or we're only thinking about, the short term immediate gratification, and doing things, in the here and now, and not thinking about tomorrow. I mean, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't be in the moment, but we should also be taking into consideration that this moment is forging the future moment, and we have some control, if nothing else, for how we choose to respond to things. And thinking long term, that is a failing of our culture. That is something that I think, as a society, we could stand to improve. We could stand to start thinking about what we do want. 100 years from now, 500 years from now. What kind of world, what kind of society do people want their children and their grandchildren to inherit? I think in older countries you do see a little bit more of that, because those countries have existed for a longer period of time. In the grand scheme of things, the United States, we haven't even quite reached 250 years. We're barely out of diapers as far as the country goes. And even though we've had very exciting history and enormous triumphs, enormous losses, and we've gone through all these difficult things, we're still forging our identity. We're still deciding who we are. And if we're going to be laying foundations that promote the highest ideals of what this country is supposed to be all about, and what we would want our lives to be all about, we do need to start thinking long term. And of course, that begins with individuals, one at a time, building themselves up, so that internal goodness can then spill out into the rest of the world. So those are my rambly thoughts. Sorry, like I said, I just got over the flu. I don't think my brain is quite recovered fully yet. So thank you for listening to me today. If you didn't mind the rambling and you'd like to carry on with the discussion, please feel free to come visit me at Blackbird's Brew on Discord. There's a link to join in the description box below. And if you would care to, I'd really love it if you would subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, like the video. And I guess that's it for now. See you in the next one. Bye.